That Sunday afternoon was supposed to be peaceful. Rain tapped gently on the windows, and I had just finished cleaning when pain seized my back. I remember calling my son, Daniel, asking him to help me reach the sore spot I couldn't touch. What happened next changed the quiet rhythm of our home forever. If you're watching this, stay with me till the end, because sometimes the smallest misunderstanding can break the strongest bond. Daniel was 17, a kind boy who rarely said no. When I asked him to help, he hesitated, embarrassed, as any teenager might be. I laughed to ease him. "It's just my shoulder blade," I said. "Nothing weird." He pressed his thumbs carefully into my back while I sat on the edge of the couch. The pain lessened. For a brief second, I felt proud. My little boy was growing into a caring young man. But then I noticed his hands tremble. His voice cracked as he asked, "Mom, are you okay?" Something in his tone, nervous, uncertain, made me freeze. I turned around, saw fear in his eyes, and suddenly every maternal instinct twisted into confusion. I didn't understand what had startled him, but guilt rushed over me as if I had done something wrong by asking for help. That was the moment the house fell silent. For the next few days, Daniel avoided me. At dinner he answered in short phrases, eyes glued to his plate. The air between us felt heavier than the rain clouds outside. I replayed that afternoon in my mind, questioning every second. Did I embarrass him? Did I cross some invisible line of privacy? I couldn't tell. Mothers aren't taught what to do when their sons start building walls you can't see through. I tried to joke, to talk, to cook his favorite meal, but the laughter never returned. The silence started whispering ugly things. You made him uncomfortable. You ruined something innocent. One night, I overheard Daniel on the phone with his friend. His voice cracked with anger. I didn't know what to do, man. It was weird. I felt wrong for even being there. I stood by the doorway, frozen. My heart broke in half. He wasn't angry at me. He was ashamed of himself. A small favor had turned into confusion neither of us knew how to name. That night, I cried quietly, praying that my love as a mother hadn't turned into a shadow of guilt in his heart. The next morning, Daniel left early for school without saying goodbye. I watched from the window as he walked down the road, his backpack bouncing on his shoulders, the same way it had when he was little. But now, something had changed. Every night, the silence in our house grew thicker. We spoke only when necessary. Dinner's ready. Good night. I'm leaving now. Each word felt like it carried 100 others we couldn't say. I blamed myself, though I didn't know what for. I told my sister on the phone, I think I upset him somehow. She said, teenage boys are confusing. Give him space. But space became distance, and distance became a wound. 2 weeks later, the principal called me in. She looked concerned as she folded her hands. "Mrs. Taylor," she began gently, "I think you should know one of Daniel's classmates mentioned that he's been troubled. He said Daniel was uncomfortable at home." The world tilted. Troubled? Because of me? I shook my head, unable to speak. When I got home, I found Daniel sitting on the porch. "Why would someone say that?" I asked softly. His face turned pale. I didn't mean for anyone to think. He stopped himself, staring at the ground. "I just told my friend that something felt awkward that day. I didn't know it would spread." Tears burned my eyes. "Daniel," I said, "you didn't do anything wrong. You were helping me. That's all." He nodded, but his eyes said otherwise, a mix of shame and relief, as if he'd been carrying a weight too heavy for his young shoulders. That evening, I knocked on his door. He didn't look up from his desk when I walked in. "Can we talk?" I asked. He nodded quietly. "Daniel," I said, "I know that day felt strange. I think we both got caught in a moment we didn't understand. You're growing up, and I'm learning to step back. Maybe I made you uncomfortable without meaning to. I'm sorry." He turned around, eyes wet. "Mom." I just didn't know how to act. I felt guilty, and then I felt stupid for feeling that way. I hugged him carefully, like he might break. "You don't need to feel guilty," I whispered. "Nothing wrong happened. Sometimes our minds make things bigger than they are." He cried against my shoulder, and for the first time in weeks, I felt the house breathe again. We decided to go on a short trip that weekend, just the two of us. No phones, no noise, just the road and a quiet cabin by the lake. The first night there, we talked for hours about school, friends, the future. I told him stories about when he was a baby, how he used to hold my finger when he slept. He laughed for the first time in months. At one point, he looked at me and said, "Mom, I was scared that I ruined how you saw me." "You didn't," I replied. "If anything, you reminded me how fragile love can feel when we start doubting ourselves." The moonlight through the window made the water shimmer like glass. For the first time since that rainy Sunday, I felt peace. A few weeks later, Daniel wrote me a note and left it on my nightstand. It read, "Mom, I don't know why that day stuck in my head so much, but I want you to know I'm not ashamed anymore. You're my mom, and that will never change. I guess growing up is confusing, but I'm glad we talked. Thank you for not giving up on me." I read it 3 times before I could stop crying. Guilt melted into something softer, understanding. Sometimes love isn't tested by betrayal or lies, but by silence, the kind that creeps in when 2 people stop talking out of fear. That Sunday didn't destroy us. It revealed how fragile trust can be when we let misunderstanding grow in the dark. I learned that communication is the bridge that holds every relationship together, especially the ones built on unconditional love. So if you're watching this, don't run from awkward moments, face them, talk about them, and never let silence define your story. Because healing begins the moment we decide to understand instead of assume. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional true stories every week. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had a misunderstanding that nearly broke a relationship? Your story might help someone heal too.